graduation we go to? I told my brother, "Yeah, I'm taking off full day Thursday, and then half day on Tuesday. I got graduation, so I got mad kids." So he's like, "Okay," but she ain't there either. Okay. All right, we're pulling up now.
Hey. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to TNT. It's great to be here with each and every one of you today. I feel like I don't even need this mic, but I probably need it for the people on stream. Today, we are going to be continuing with our Blessings, Breakthroughs, and Banned Books series, and we're going to be discussing Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. If you did not read it, it's fine. It's fine. We have we have contextualized the conversation so that it's not necessary that you have had to read it if you didn't get the chance to read it. So it's fine. Hopefully we'll still have a fruitful conversation. We are going to pray. If you are joining on virtually, welcome. You can drop your questions in the chat. If you are on YouTube, if you drop your questions on the chat in YouTube, then Akira can feed me those questions that come up online, and I can answer those as well. It is a sweltering hot day today still, so some people might be in the house, but we're going to be here. It doesn't matter where two or three are gathered. That's where we are, and this is the last TNT until September, so we get a good little break. You can TNT on your own at home or go back to YouTube and look at some older episodes of TNT, but this is our last TNT until September. And I know generally the pastor who preaches on the Sunday comes and speaks about whatever their sermon is, but because we already had Blessings, Breakthroughs, and Banned Books kind of planned, Pastor Lakeisha graciously let us continue that for this evening. But if you did not have an opportunity to watch the sermon or be in the building, please go back and look at the great sermon and, let God impart something on you. So with that, let's go to God in prayer. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather. We thank you for the fact that in this day and age, it is still necessary for words to speak, for them to have life, that things that may not even be current can still speak something to us, can still impart something to us. God, we are grateful for the ability to use our words and our voices and our stories and our narratives to convey something that is transformative to others, God. And so in this moment, let not anybody limit their own story. Let them not limit their experience as something that lacks value or that is not important, because we all have a story to tell, and we never know the ways in which that story can bring life to someone else. So we are grateful for this moment, for this day. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. So again, we're going to be going over Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I saw some people's faces. It's okay if you did not read the book. We will be able to have a conversation about it, whether you've read it or not. There are mics in the aisles should you have a question. I know we can probably hear each other in here, but because there are folks on the stream, Akira? Because there are folks on the stream, we want to ensure that they can hear your comments and your questions as well. So if you don't want to go to the mic, then I will just repeat the question or whatever your statement is so that everybody can hear. And again, if you're joining online and you have a question or a comment that you want lifted, you can drop it in the chat on YouTube, and Akira will convey that to me. And I have my laptop up here because I took lots of notes. If you don't know one thing about me, you should know that I love to read. Like, I am an avid reader. I probably read just about daily, whether it's the New York Times, a book. I'm always reading something. I'm always recommending a book. I love reading so much that when I was a kid, and the very few times I would get in trouble, like, you couldn't whoop me because I'm too stubborn. So if you whoop me, I wasn't going to cry. Nobody's getting joy out of that. You couldn't tell me I couldn't go outside to play with people because I'm like, who needs people? It's fine. So the only thing on the few times that I did get in trouble that my mom could punish me, she would have to punish me by telling me I couldn't read. You have to know your kids. And so that I liked to be in the room writing with the stories and imaginary people in my head with my library card. So I've always loved reading. I do the crosswords every day, Wordle, spelling bees, every day. Get at me. Like I love words. And I used to carry on my own little dictionary every time I didn't know a word. I had a little composition, like the black and white composition books. And every time I found a word that I didn't know, I would write that word in my own dictionary and created my own little dictionary that I'm just proving that I was like a nerd growing up. But my point is that I really loved reading, and I enjoyed reading this book again because it was written so long ago. But you ever go back and read a book and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have been reading that at the age. Like when I went back to read Color Purple, I was like, what was I doing reading this at like 10? Like you don't even understand some of kind of the concepts or the things that are kind of being brought forth because they're kind of adult, even though they're about children. So when I went back and read this, I was like, oh yeah, no, I didn't have the understanding of some of these things. So it's always good to kind of come back to those things. So what we're going to do tonight, just to make it easy, is that I'm going to lift up some quotes from the book and give some insight, ask some questions. You can ask questions, and we probably won't be here too long. Like I said, I'm glad the AC is fixed because it was real hot in here about an hour ago. So if you don't know, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing is one of 7 autobiographies that Maya Angelou wrote about her life. So this kind of takes, her through her childhood and like her early adolescence, but she actually kind of wrote 7 books that were kind of going together about her entire life. And the title of the book is based on Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was a pretty famous Black poet. It was based on his poem Sympathy that he wrote that talks about a caged bird, and so that's where she kind of got the title for this book. So like I said, it really chronicles Maya's early upbringing with her brother Bailey, living in Stamps, and then moving, going to California. So she lives with her grandmother for some time in Stamps, and then she goes to California where her mother is, and her father, and her mother and her grandfather, and she's kind of back and forth for a period of time between like her grandmothers and her mothers, and she's kind of just talking about her experiences. So a lot of the themes that you kind of find in this are about racism, about about belonging, about colorism. Really, honestly, when you read it, it's sad because the book was written in 1969, but a lot of the topics and the subjects are things that still are relevant for today. And that kind of disheartens me sometimes when I'm like, man, like, yes, this was written all of this time ago, but we are really still facing and dealing with a lot of these things in a lot of different ways. And so while there has been progress that has been made, it also shows how much further we have to go. And so I think that's why the book, even though it's a memoir that was written so long ago, it still holds relevance. And that is why it's important for us to read these banned books in the time when, like, I feel like education right now, or the ability to know things, we have so much access to like knowledge and learning. We have Google, we have all of these options, and it just feels though like ignorance is at an all-time high. And so books are one of the ways and the places and the spaces where we can get information, where they can't take away our stories. That's why, if you are someone who feels like you have a story, get it out. It doesn't matter how perfect it is. If you feel like that's a poem, if I'm currently writing a book, 0 out of 10 would not recommend it. Like, not really, but it's really hard to sit in. But that book, when it comes out into the world, is something that nobody can take away. And so however you get your story out, get it out for the world to know, for you to know. So I encourage you to do that and to make your mark. It doesn't matter how widespread it is. It's important that we know that our stories have value. And so I just want to raise some of the themes and just have some conversation around those things. So if you've seen Maya Angelou, you see she kind of grew up. She's a dark-skinned girl, probably 4C hair like mine, and she grew up with a family of folks who were light-skinned. So her brother Bailey was known for just having this beautiful hair. Her mother looked like Kay Francis, who was a white actress, but Maya's mother kind of favored her because of their background and having a German background. So even though there was white in Maya's family, and even though her family looked a particular way and was, would be deemed very attractive, Maya didn't feel that way. And so because of that, and because of how she kind of, put herself kind of on the color scheme, she kind of felt like she was unworthy and she wasn't valuable. And so she feels often that, there's this quote where she's describing her brother, and she says, when I was described by our playmates as being, we'll just say poop color, he was lauded for his velvet black skin, his hair fell down in black curls, and my head was covered with black steel wool, and yet he loved me. And it's that, and yet he loved me, where she feels like it's a privilege that her brother would love her because of how she looked. And it's an interesting thing how we perceive love, how we feel, the ways in which we feel like we're not deserving of love, and then the choices we make because we don't feel like we deserve love. So when you walk through this world feeling like you're not deserving of the love of people around you, you will concede in all types of ways so that you can get that love. I don't know if anyone else has kind of that experience. You just want that attention from whoever. So sometimes you're willing to sacrifice yourself, even in some very unhealthy ways, just so that you can get love. And this idea that you feel like your love has to be earned or deserved. Like that, when we think about love in that way, it becomes very transactional. And so we just don't always feel like we get what we need. But what I love is that no matter what, God's love is unconditional, right? At least that's how we should understand it. But when you grow up again thinking that all of the love around you is conditional and not deserving, then how does that play into how we think about God? That how do we think that, and because we think that way, if I do this, then God will love me. If I don't do this, then God is angry at me. We live in condemnation and lie, and then we feel like we have to be perfect all of the time. We have to show up perfect. We have to check off bug. Did I read my Bible? Did I pray? Did I fast? I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And we limit God to checklists. And I do this so that God loves me. I do this so that I can go to heaven. I do this so that I can, show up in the world a particular way. And that doesn't leave a lot of space for grace. It doesn't leave a lot of space for us to evolve and grow when all we believe is that our love is based on what we do and how we show up versus just who we are inherently at birth. And so not feeling like love has to be qualified first is a hard lesson to get. We're still learning that as adults sometimes. I don't actually have to do anything for you to I should just deserve this just because of who I am. And I'm in my 40s still learning that. Some of us are older learning that. Some of us are younger learning that, and even loving ourselves unconditionally. Even, the shadow sides of ourselves saying, it doesn't matter. I'm going to love myself in this iteration. I'm going to love myself in the next iteration, because some of us are so busy trying to be the next best version of ourselves that we don't love the version that we are, because we don't want to be this version. I want to grow. You ever do that? I'm sick of myself. And I know I've been those moments where I'm sick of being this version. How come I can't get over this particular thing, this particular whatever? I am very type A and manic. I can go I'm not emotional I'm more of a shower crier, so I'm not outside. I'm not emotion in that way, but emotion, my first thought with something is stress. Can you do this thing? Oh my God, I go to a 10 really, really quick, and trying to learn to be it's fine, it's good, everything always works out. Like that is not, that's not my cadence at all, but trying to learn to say like, okay. And I cannot stand that because I'm like, girl, can you just not be this version? Can you just get over this? Like, haven't you paid your therapist enough money? Obviously, no, I have not. And so just learning that, all right, this is where I am right now. I'm working through that. But there's some place else also that I'm trying to be. And again, at any moment, if you want to say something, please feel free. Or if anybody is dropping anything in the chat. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. So the question was, why is this particular book banned? So there's actually not clear criteria for why particular books are banned. A lot of books right now are banned if they are dealing with certain topics. So you'll see everything from like Hunger Games to Handmaid's Tale to The Bluest Eye, and really what happens is, especially on the local level, that if enough people gather and decide that they want a book banned from their school, or they can just make that decision. They can kind of vote to decide that the book is banned, and if you don't have knowledge about it, then the book goes on the banned book. And I think I would have to find the ALA puts out a list, but that list is always changing and fluctuating. And so you find, again, a lot of books that are dealing with like LGBTQIA themes, racism, and even books like, there are a lot of books I had to read as a kid. Like, what's the one where they're on the island and they're dressed up in like pigs and, Lord of the Flies. It'll be like, sorry, I'm like, what is the book with the kids and the pigs? Lord of the Flies. So there are books even that I read, like in high school, that were mandatory books that are now, Dr. Seuss books are on there. Like, yes, like all types of books are on the banned book list. It doesn't mean you don't have access to them, Color Purple, but all of these books are kind of there. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this in this day and age, is to kind of continue to talk about them and say, like, these things still exist. You still have access to them, and they're still available at libraries and bookstores and things, but they're taking them out as like required reading in like schools, or they won't be on like the shelves at certain schools based on the district. So any other questions? All right, any questions on the chat? No, not yet? Okay. So one of the things reading the book that came up a lot, and if FCBC is your first church, you may not have had this experience, but if you grew up with like in the South, or you had Southern parents or Southern grandparents or any remnants of that, it's like how they did church, how they understood church, how they understood religion, how they understood God. Is like my grandmother is from South Carolina, and so some of the things I got from church from her, when I used to go, me and my brother used to go to Pennsylvania, to Reading, Pennsylvania, where I was born, and we would go back and have to go, back, and she's got me in the frilly dresses with the slippery shoes. It's like a fish fry in the basement, like the two-piece band. Like, so, if you don't have some of that kind of context because you're coming into like an FCBC, you don't know about those like kind of storefront kind of churches, and just some of the ideas we had and understood about God, right? My grandmother is very clear to her that, the King James version of the Bible is the best Bible, and that God was white, right? And that's some of the things that you see in here, that this idea that there's a line where she says, I fully believe that God was white, but even though I didn't believe that God was prejudiced. So there was this idea that how they understood God then played into how they understood poverty, how they understood where they were in life. And so this idea of a God who was white, a God who was on the side of those who were white, where there's some theology around like God is of the oppressed, right? And so that's really something that comes up a lot in what Maya kind of talks about, her understanding of God, but also her grandmother's understanding of God, and even how she kind of saw her brother to some degrees as like a version of kingdom come. And so she talks about this idea of needing, she had an unshaking need for an unshakable God. So she talks about that being one of the things that she needs, and she kind of projects these divine qualities on her brother. But it was really about the stability and wanting to have an ever-present protector. And that is probably because of the instability that was going on in her life, but also not having a stable father figure. And so for a lot of us, God becomes a surrogate for whomever is not showing up. So for some, God shows up as like a mother, right? For some, God might be father, because we want that presence that is stable, that is kind of, a protector of the things that we didn't have. But conversely, we can also get some bad ideas that we project about God based on our experiences. If I have an absent father, right, then I can put on that and say, God is my father, and I need this unshakable God that shows up in there. But if I had a horrible father who was a punisher, or who, and penalized me, then my understanding of God, if I'm noting God as father, becomes God is someone who judges, who penalizes, who is, hard on us. And you'll find here a lot at FCBC, we use inclusive language. So you'll notice a lot that often we're not referring to God as like he. Sometimes you'll hear he, but if you hear he, you might hear she. Most often, you'll hear us say God is God, because God transcends any kind of, gender identity. God is not really male nor female. I was like, God could be a leprechaun. You just don't know, right? But God is not those things, and we've even changed and evolved our language here, where even in, like I did baptism last Sunday, you'll hear me say, like on the profession and confession of your faith, I baptize you in the name of, we used to say Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We don't say that anymore. We say God, because God is just God, the Son, because Jesus literally was male, we know, and then the Holy Spirit. So our intentionality too around using inclusive language and being mindful about what we're projecting about God, and not projecting those things onto you all when that isn't who God is. Those are like kind of the binaries we place God in so that we can have a better understanding of God. Were you gonna say something? Oh, no, okay. So I'm sometimes we make God so kind of abstract and almighty that we kind of miss the presence of God in a particular way. And it also shows up in what we teach, right? Like there are people who will argue me down that like cleanliness is next to godliness is like a scripture. And I'm like, that is not a scripture. But there are some things that we just get ingrained into, like us as those who grew up like in church and religion, and it's really not about religion per se, right? There's a lot in this book where Maya's grandmother they're always about her being clean, like put on the Vaseline, wipe your body, don't go out ashy, don't do this, show up a particular way. And you're a kid trying to play, and it's like, but don't get dirty. It's like, why did you put me in this? To just not get dirty, right? And she even says in the book, like, thou shalt not be dirty, and thou shalt not be dirty. And it's not a commandment, but there really was this idea about respectability. And when you think about growing up as a Black person, right, your respectability becomes like an armor to some degree. Like, you can't go out in the world looking a particular way, because that reflects on the family. It reflects on Black people as a whole. Like, I've said it before, I'm like, oh no, like I gotta do my baby's hair because they're gonna think I don't love her. You know what I mean? You think about all these things, if one of my daughters, she is good for, like, it takes hours to do their hair. And she is good. You know them kids who go to school And they come out and it's like, why are all your ponytails out? That was you? Like, why did you cut up your shirt? Like, why? And they're just kids being kids, right? But you automatically assume that, oh my gosh, if my kid looks unkempt, that's reflecting something on me or my care or my love. So we transfer all of that on the kids all the time when the kid is just being, she was like, I just liked it better this way. And I'm like, and sometimes even like what they want to wear to church. I'm like, that does not match. I wanted to cringe one day. My daughter wanted to wear open-toed sandals with socks. And I was like, oh God, this is all the fashion faux pas. Like, this is not how, but I had to think, I like to express myself through what I wear, right? She is trying to express herself. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. Akira can attest that I was taking their braids out, and my daughter literally had half braids in, half braids out, and she had recorded a video and decided she was going to put it somewhere she was not supposed to put it because they don't have social media and stuff, but there are these little kids apps. And she had posted on this kids app, which is a whole other sermon topic, but her hair was crazy, and I was like, girl. My mother was there, Akira was there. I'm like, you didn't care that half your braids was out and and she was like, I don't care what the people think about me. She was like, it's my hair, right? She was, if I like it, then I don't really care. But we were not able to grow up with the agency of like being able to be tacky. Like we were not able to kind of just have the agency to say, we didn't get to love ourselves wholly. Like I feel like my daughter loves herself like, she does not care what anyone thinks. We didn't have that luxury of just love. We didn't think we deserved that love from God. We didn't see that love type of showing up. We didn't always have the privilege of self-love. And so that's what we're seeing here is that Maya doesn't feel that self-love is like an extra thing that you get. We don't get to just wake up and feel that way. It's like we have to earn even our self-love. And that is something that was ingrained in us, that like kids these days have a lot more tools and accessibility to like their emotions and the ability to show up a particular way, but like absolutely not. You being clean or presentable is about you needing to be clean and presentable. It's also about how we think about God. You have to be clean and presentable before God. Pure, driven, white as snow, always perfect.
A lot of that has to do with the history as well. When you were speaking about your grandmother, it reminded me of my grandmother. And my grandmother would, like, her excuse for us having to wear certain things or having to do certain things, it was connected to her own experiences growing up in South Carolina. I remember my grandmother told me, she was like, you know, you need to make sure your underwear is always clean, because what if you get hit by a car?
Yes.
And they're gonna see your underwear is dirty. And I'm like, if I get hit by a car, why are we worried about my dirty underwear? But that's the ideas and the concepts that they kind of grew up with, a lot of it connecting to not only history, but mainly like slavery and things like that, and how you had to present, even when it comes down to like us dressing up to go to church. Like you was the good Negro when you came in with your proper clothes, which means that your master was taking care of you. And so a large part of it is history that's kind of all wrapped into one and wrapped into religion, and we don't even realize that we're just repeating it.
Yeah. Yes, faith has something. And my mom took it one step further. It wasn't if you got hit by a car. She was like, because what if you die? And I'm like, then I will be dead. Like, no one's going to care about this. But yes, this idea of like how you show up, what it conveys, it's not about you. It's about what your appearance says about whoever else is taking care of you, from your master, your parents, your family. And it was definitely different for even girls than it was for boys. I remember being in church and my brother could fall asleep and my male cousins could be asleep in church. My grandma was like, my nana would be like, nope. And I'm like, but their sleep didn't matter. I was a girl. And so I had to, there was a certain expectation of me That wasn't even placed, which is also a church. There's an expectation placed on women, not placed on men. Churches are made up mostly of women, but men most often hold all of the positions of power, but they also get a lot of the passes in church. There's some things men can do, and it's like, now that is raggedy, but you're a man, so it's fine. But if you are a female, then people tend to be harder on you about everything from how you dress, what you do, how you show up, even in church, even now. Faye?
My mom was a Southern woman from Georgia, and she sat down. We were asking her questions, and she started saying when she was little, they were told like that they had to pray a little harder, they had to present themselves a little better, because white people didn't need God because they had everything. In order for them to get something, they had to go the extra miles. You've got to praise a little harder, you've got to look a certain way, so I just found that like amazing for her to be like, she said, no, all the kids, 9, 10, 5, you all knew that you had to go a little harder because you wanted what they had, and they didn't even need God. So he was personally just for us.
Yes. And when you think about that, how that conveys, even now, where they tell you, you go out there, you got to be 10 times better. You got to show. So then when we are burnt out and tired, going hard for less money, don't understand the concept of rest or any of these things because it's ingrained in us. We don't ever get to take a break. In slavery, we didn't get to take a break. As sharecroppers, we didn't get to take a break. We never get to take a break. And then how much of that becomes mask, right? You begin to show up in facade in a particular way in the world where it's not really who you are. It's where all of the things like code switching come from, right? The idea that you have to be this person in this world and this person in that world. My mom, we could not, in my house, we could not speak slang. So I could not use any type of slang. That was probably my mom being black, but my mom was also a Marine. So like the strictness was strict, but I was not allowed to use slang, right? So then my mom was trying to help us to show up a particular way. But then now when I went to school with black kids and you're speaking in these ways, now I'm an Oreo, right? Black on the outside, but white on the inside because I'm talking like, even now I get made, sometimes I enunciate. I'm coming to FCBC in New York, I got a little bit, it curved it a little bit more. But we could not. And you better put Miss and Mrs. or a title. Even now, my kids, they'll be like, Rebecca, that's Miss Rebecca. And the teacher will be like, no, it's fine. She can call me Rebecca. No, she cannot call you Rebecca. I don't care if you're 23, you're a miss, you're a Mrs., you're a Mr., you're something when you're an adult. Even the brothers and sisters, Auntie Akira, it's like Auntie Rena. Like, you are not just gonna be up in here calling no adult. Hey, Susie, no, absolutely not. You had something you wanted to say? No? But yes, again, some of that is just teaching your kids manners and things, but some of it comes, we have these things that are ingrained in us. Because really the idea of Miss or Mr. is like 2 steps from massa, right? But those are the things that we were taught that we have to, again, show up in a particular way. Oh, right here, Oh, we're gonna get the mic. Is it on? Yeah, just put it right to your mouth.
As adults, we still say, if someone is older than I am, and I am old, I'm still going to say Mrs., Mr., or whatever. But it's hard now with the children or with the younger people because they're not taught that.
No, right.
In the church or out of the church, they'll call you by your first name, and then their parents won't correct it. So we have to find a way to get back to that. You know, it's hard sometimes trying to tell someone else's kid that too, because the parent hadn't learned that, so you might get a little beat up.
Right.
But we have to get back to, raising a village and not allowing people to just do what they want. I was raised too I came from the South, Charleston, South Carolina, and the same thing. The little small church, the shouting and everything. I remember one time my mother shouted so much till her wig fell off. I was under the pew trying to get her wig to put it back on.
Put it back on.
But that's what we need to get back to, you know. And I know things are different, but that's what we need to do.
And it's hard, right? It is, like, because even now to this day, there is not, if someone is older than me, like I'm not just gonna say, some folks I may say Faye, right? But if Faye was like, it's Miss Faye, I'd be like, absolutely, you're right, I apologize, it's Miss Faye. But I'm not going to Miss Betty.
But like you said,
or certain people, Miss Jan, and not putting something in front of the name. And it is hard now, because back in the day, anybody could snatch me up on the block. Anybody who saw me not acting right was able to be like, nope, or I'm going to tell your mother. That's not, because like you said, this concept of village, there was this idea we all needed each other. But now you can't say, even in church sometimes, you can't say just something to somebody's kid. It depends on who you are and if the person respects you, because if you say something, it's like, why are you saying that to my kid? But it's also because we used to have maybe a more standard set of rules for things. You say miss, you do this, to do this, and do that. It's become so, it's all over, it's more convoluted now, right? So I may even be giving you a correction that's not the correction for your household, where generally it was like, here's the secret book of all the black people rules. It's like, why do we do that? Like, why does everybody, when you're done cleaning the kitchen, turn on the light above the oven? We don't know. But anyone else do that? It's a night, like the ancestor light. It's like, why do we do that? Why do I put comment in my tub and leave it there and let it soak? It's not seasoning the tub. It doesn't. It really doesn't when you just put it in there dry and sprinkle it like salt in the tub. But, okay, you don't do that. Okay, but there are just certain, but you put water in there and you scrub it and you leave it, right? But there are just some things you do and you're like, wait, what secret book did all these things get passed down that we all do this thing? But that secret book doesn't exist anymore in the same way. It's like it used to be like the Green Book. Remember the Green Book you used to get when you wanted to travel in the South, and it was like, this is where you go, this is how you do. If you want to be safe, we used to have like kind of almost like a code of ethics. And that code of ethics is just ever evolving. And so you're trying to learn how to make that make that work. So yes, so the things have definitely changed, but you're still sometimes trying to instill those things as much as you can. But I feel like with each generation, again, it gets a little bit of it is lost unless you're very intentional. And then we're coming more and more generations out of slavery and out of sharecropping. So the more you come out of those kind of modes, the more you lose some of those things. But nobody puts the comment in the tub, just me. Great. You do? Oh, y'all know. So, okay, see? You put a comment in it, so, but y'all just wet it first, huh? I must. You let it marinate on the tub so the dirt gets out. That's what I'm saying, but okay. Yes. And I want to go to something a bit more serious, is, in the book, Maya is raped by her mother's boyfriend at the age of 8. And subsequently, she doesn't say anything because the boyfriend, does the same. It feels like it's a him, but I'll kill your brother if you say anything. She's 8. She doesn't know that that's just a fear tactic. So she doesn't say anything. But my daughters are 8. you know what I mean? And he ends up getting found out. He goes to court, but this is at the point where Maya is at back with her mother, and her mother and them, they're like, it's like a little family of like gangsters. So the man gets out. He's supposed to go to jail for like a year. He gets out, but then very shortly thereafter, he is found dead, and it's believed that it was Maya's uncles who murdered him. But it was the shame that she carried because she felt like it was her fault that he had gotten murdered or killed, even though he had raped her, and she was a child. And I think about when we talk about the things that get passed down in particular Black families, one of the things that gets passed down a lot is carrying secrets. If you think, because again, when we talk about, when we go back to how things reflect on the family can never look bad. So there are a lot of folks who they knew the uncle was doing such and such or the cousin was doing, but nobody said anything. It just kept getting swept under the rug. And there's this idea that we as Black people have to hold secrets, right? And even when you take it back to slavery, we couldn't worship God in this way, so we were going to the hush harbors and worshiping in secret. There were so many things that we had to do in secret, but what happens when that becomes our lifestyle? It's to carry secrets, right? We don't share anything. It's also what I believe also underlies why people don't go to therapy. Right? Because to go to therapy means I have to share a secret, and we're not always taught to do that. We are not taught to share those things. We're taught to keep those things in, or you pray about it to the Lord, right? You can get the mic. So this idea of this and what she cared, and she was so traumatized by all this that she didn't talk for 5 years. For 5 years, this little girl who was violated felt like it was just, so the way in which our trauma and the things that happened to us, they steal our voice. And it literally stole her voice, her agency, and her power because she was shrouded in this trauma, and she felt like it was safer. It's safer for me to just be quiet. And how many of us it's safer for me to just shrink. It's safer for me to dim my light. It's safer for me to be as small as possible in the world so that I don't make any ripples. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure, I'm always hearing people talk about going to therapy when you're in church. One thing I noticed that we're always told to speak life, but when you go to therapy, you're told to talk about your past. Mm-hmm. So how does speaking life and continually talking about your past work together? I can't see that.
Yeah. So how if you're talking about past, which in your mind is dead, right? So in your mind, your past is dead because it's no longer existing. Right. So if I go to therapy and I'm unearthing things that are past, that isn't speaking life. Right. But the reality is that a lot of us are like walking dead anyway. Right? It's over, right? That the thing is over, but we are not past it. Like some of us, you may be in your 40s or your 50s, but you're really 10, right? Because whatever happened or occurred is still walking with you and moving with you in a particular way. So you're not past it. So sometimes I feel like therapy helps age you up. Because by only sometimes confronting like what the genesis of something was, because sometimes we think we just are the way we are because we are. And by being able to kind of go back and backtrack and say like, no, this is why I am this way. It's like, I feel like it's confronting the monster under the bed that really maybe isn't there, but we still think that it's there. And really, honestly, if we think about church, maybe in FCBC you hear go to therapy, but I don't think that church as a whole still promotes therapy. Literally it promotes, because what do you need therapy for when you got God, right? If you have God, right, then you pray about it. If you believe that God is all-knowing and all-doing so you believe that whatever has happened in your life, good or bad, is God ordained, what do you need to go to therapy to get healed from, right? This is what God wanted for my life. So you don't feel the need to go get healed from what you feel God afflicted you with, right? So I still think that that is, and again, don't tell, don't share the secrets, keep it quiet, do this. I remember, because it's present with me now because I'm writing a chapter about it. And some of you may have been here, some of you may have not been here, but if you're not aware, well, you'll be aware that I was a pastor here, but when I got pregnant, I wasn't married. So when I got pregnant, I at the time had a blog out that I was like writing like articles and things on. And I wrote an article about being a pastor and being pregnant. Because at the time, because I grew up so conservative, even though I was in a place like FCBC, I didn't know what was going to happen once it was like, I was even, you know, yes, Pastor Mike and Pastor Lakeisha had their kids and they weren't married, but that was testimony. When something's far away, it's like, oh, that was 20 years ago. That's your testimony now. Like this was an active thing happening. And so when I wrote about it because when I shared it, I received a lot of grace from like the staff here, the pastor. There was support, not from everyone, but from as it pertains to like the staff and things. And I wrote the blog. In short, it went very, very viral, very, 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 very viral in a lot of bad ways. Like I was receiving death threats. People felt like I should not be in my position here. They were calling me all types of things, making YouTube videos about what, you know, it was bad. It was really, really bad. But one of the things that folks said was, well, why didn't you wait to share that story? Like, again, that notion of sweeping something under, like you should have waited until you already had the kids to share it. Why didn't you do it further down the line? And again, that notion of not wanting to share, like, don't let the secret out. It's like, it's two babies. There's no secret here. Like, it's obvious, like, right? But again, this idea of like, even I feel in church, like, don't call out your pastor. Don't do, it's like, shh. You know, people get real mad when you do things that like make the church look bad. It's another, like, don't, and it's like everybody, like, this is no secret. And I don't mean church like a church, I mean church as like the institution. That there's like these ways in which we do the same thing. Don't make your family look bad. Don't make God look bad. Don't make the church look bad. And so all these ways in which you have to have all of these respectability politics, even if it's in a disservice to yourself. And again, the notion of wanting to silence my story, right? I wanted to share my story because I was like, I thought this was going to go this way. I didn't know it was going to happen. And I received this grace. My blog was about the grace I received. But what came back was like, not grace. Not grace at all. But again, just, you know, again, how we understand God, how we understand all these things plays into how we, again, share. I gave a lot of co-pays to my therapist behind that, which is why I can talk about it now. And no one now, you're not going to come up and call my children abomination to my face. I'll just get fired fighting. You know what I mean? But that is just, you know, we all are trying to deal with these things as best we can. So, so we have hands all over here. Go ahead,
How did you handle that aside from your therapist?
Oh, how did I handle it?
How did you feel like?
Yeah.
Emotions?
I was angry, right? But I was also by this time, like, it went viral during my baby shower.
I was here when you had your baby, but I don't know any of that.
So it was like, someone was like, did you see this? It's like, cut the thing one, thing two, cake. And it was like, hey, did you see this thing? And it was like, oh, this blog went everywhere. What is happening? But I was going on bed rest by that time because I was now 7 months pregnant. So I never got to respond. So I had to, I was being insulated a lot. At a certain point, I couldn't answer my emails anymore. Like my assistant was doing that because there was so much stuff coming. And at that point, even though Des wanted to be like, let's go, I had to think about the fact that I was like, trying to keep two humans healthy, and the stress wasn't there. That I couldn't have the stress. So I had to kind of stuff it down to some degree, right? And just take it, I took it is what I did. For the sake of my children being healthy, I took it, right? And and I was like, strangers being so invested in my uterus, like, you don't even know me, right? And you had all these opinions. People were saying they hate me. They were saying if they saw me in the street, they would try to fight me. I'm like, you would try to fight a 7-month-old, pregnant woman because you're mad because the order didn't work for you? And so a lot of that. So after that, I quit blogging, right? Because I was so traumatized. I stopped writing the same way after what happened to Maya, even though to some, I put myself in the fire by writing the blog. I silenced myself. I felt like I couldn't write authentically anymore. I was very scared of being attacked again. So that's when I was like, well, if I can't tell the truth in blogs, I guess I'll just start telling it in fiction. That's how I started screenwriting. I was like, oh, well, if we just make it a story. So I just repurposed it. And now at this point, I have enough to kind of be, to go back out and say, okay, I can share these things now in this particular way. But what it also taught me was the power of my words, because I was like, if these little 1,200 black words on this white paper could do all of this, I was like, if I channel this right, if I channel what impact could I have? And so I tried to repurpose it, or that's what I'm actively trying to do, is work to repurpose those things in ways that are helpful for other people. That's how things like Unchurched and all of these things are coming out of trying to say, like, how can I take this moment that was very painful and repurpose this into something? Because for me, I had the support. There are women who aborted their babies because they had to go up in front of a church and apologize, right? Or there are people so you saw all that on the outside, but there were so many women quietly, right? They didn't do it publicly, but that would send emails and say thank you, or, thank you for sharing this, or whatever the case may be. Because when I was pregnant, that didn't happen for me. Or when this happened, so it was like, how can I help those folk? Those women. And so I think as much as you can, you try to repurpose your pain. I think that's what Maya Angelou, she decided she repurposed her pain. And after some time, that's what fueled these words that we are reading. Had she not figured out how to work that out and decide that she was going to be a writer, we would not be having this discussion, today about her work. So still working through it, but my writing is actually helping me, because now I'm like, oh, well, this chapter is the response. Here's what I would have said, right? But I didn't have the power to do that 9 years ago.
Take that blog down?
Well, yeah, because I stopped paying Wix or whoever the website was up. I mean, I have the original blog, like, in my stuff, but like I said, I just completely, and then now I was trying to figure out how to keep two humans alive. So what was a blog? It was like, I was trying to figure out how to also raise 2 children.
The reason I ask, because sometimes I write stuff sometimes on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and some is encouraging, some is like maybe being like scolding people, but then I get these comments and then I take it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a coward because I don't want to deal with it, so I take it down.
I know, but if you Google me and my maiden name, it'll all still come up. Like, you can still, because I had to go back recently in order to write, and I had to actually go through and read some of what people say. It's still all there, right? But, so my kids are still here, and they're amazing, right? And they're great, and there's joy, and so I take all of that, like, not what those folks' words are, because people are fickle. The same people who call my children abomination probably like their pictures on social media now. That's just how things work, or they don't, and it's okay, because I know who my people are. I know we talked about village. You know who your village is. You know where and I'm not looking for affirmation. And sometimes when we're, especially in this age of social media, we want everybody to affirm everything we do. We want everybody to love. Like, social media, like, that is not your family. Like, that is not your village, because one day they love you. It's the crowd mentality, right? The same crowd that was like hallelujah and hosanna to Jesus one day was like crucify him the next. So that can't be your barometer for the choices that you make or what you do. Like, if you're gonna write it, stand in it. Or don't put it up. Like, don't write. I was just cheap and didn't pay the website. And I was a coward at that time, right? I am not a coward now. So, but we have to go through that, right? Because none of us want stones thrown at us. So I get it. Where you're like, I'm just going to remove this, And social media has a particular way of making people bolder than they would ever be in person. So people are really quick to type things that they would never actually say to you. And so I don't honor that. Like, I'm not honoring you if you can't come and like stand in my face and tell me what you want to say, because I would stand in your face and tell you what I wanted to say. But I'm not prone to doing, even if I don't like a movie or something, I'm probably not even gonna go on social media and be like, I hated this movie. I'ma just keep, because I know what it feels like, right? So I'm mindful to not do particular things on social, just because I know what it feels like to be on the other end of that in such like a brutal and nasty way. So there were two here and here. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say, growing up in a Southern Black church, I was appalled. When I was like 8 years old, I saw a lot. Like maybe 11, I started like scolding the church about how they treated the young girls that would come up pregnant, and they would make the girl parade and say she was sorry and that she sinned and all of that. Meanwhile, the guy is in the church also. And so when I was like 9, I got up and I said, so where's the guy? So why can't he say he's sorry as well? They shut me up, they put me down. They was like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I was young, but yet I understood that. So Des, I really want to applaud you for your courage. I mean, I didn't see a lot. I don't know, I'm not into the politics of the church. Yeah. But when you got up and you preached, and Pastor, they allowed you that, and I was like, that is so brave. Because just to be able to get up there and deliver a sermon like that, in the condition that you were in. Mm-hmm. Like me, I understood that, because at 9 years old, I called my church out about that same thing, and it was like, don't do that. Like, why are we doing that? We should stop doing it. And so when my sister got pregnant, her guy, he went too. The two of them went to the church at the same time, because we have all sinned and fall short. It's not about being pregnant. It's about whatever lie we told, whatever other sin that we did. Church has a way of weighing sin. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're this, you're that, you did this, you did that. But at the end of the day, it's all sin, and God is love. I think we need to, as a church, especially the Baptist church, we need to learn how to just say God is love. And I always tell people, I have no heaven or hell to put anyone in. And I never, my friend, when she comes to me with gossip and want to talk about this, I was like, you don't know their story. Yeah. You do not know that person's story, so you have to be careful how you critique people's sin. And first look at your own sin. Mm-hmm. Look in the mirror, that person in the mirror. After you do that, you have nothing left to be trying to judge anyone else. So I applaud you. I always, give you, when I see you, I see that, and I'm saying you were very strong, and I really applaud your bravery in that moment. So
thank you. And then again, like, this is my job, right? So I think folk then too, they were like, she should stop preaching. It's like, it's definitely my job. If my boss told me I had to preach, I had to preach. I certainly did not want to be 5 and 6 months pregnant preaching. It wasn't like I was going up there trying to make some big statement. He was like, I'm not going to be there that Sunday. Pregnant or not, you up. Like, it was literally like, job description, preach, you up. Like, that's what it was. But people are like, get her down from there. I'm like, I am definitely not the senior pastor here. Like, I am not making these choices. Yes, I want to sit down too because my feet hurt. Okay, like, So there's that, but I also want to press, like, I think what you said was beautiful. I just want us to press, and we're always thinking of even what we consider and how we talk about, like, even the idea of sin, right? And like what that is, because the way in which we label it, and we do it, and again, you're trying to do this in a very like generous way, in a way that is, encouraging and empowering. And I definitely appreciate all of that. I also just want us to think about, because we do tend to label like things as like sin, and use that as this blanket kind of idea of like what you should or shouldn't do. But when you even look biblically about like how sin is described, like first of all, it's translated so many different ways to mean different things, right? And so when we tend to label like if you did this thing, 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 it's a sin. And then to your point, then we do a hierarchy of what sin is here. But I actually continue to wrestle through the idea of sin as a construct, period, right? And also who is naming what the sin is and why and to what end and to what motive. Because to your point, if you think about the woman in John 8, when they brought her in front, right? They brought her, woman caught in adultery. It wasn't woman and man caught in adultery. Literally the title of the subject is woman caught in adultery. No man. And what adultery even meant, or what these things mean, right? And then again, Jesus just writes in the sand, is like, whoever is without sin, cast the first stone. But this idea of like even what that looks like, and and again, all this is very present. We also have a way of, we don't even keep the same barometer for things, right? Because Mary definitely wasn't married, right? She was unwed, and in first century Jewish empire under Roman rule, she was betrothed to Joseph. It don't matter who impregnated her, it wasn't Joseph. So by law, Mary being betrothed was a legally binding contract that now when she shows up pregnant, she could have been executed and killed, right? So she broke the law, but we're not even like, I could go into the whole thing about the fact that Mary didn't even get to say yes. So even her being impregnated was non-consensual. The Holy Spirit didn't come, angel didn't come and say, so, we're gonna give you this baby, you want it? Mary didn't have a choice. She didn't get to say yes or no. It was not consensual. But we're okay with that story. Like we're okay with that version of the 14-year-old unwed betrothed woman who doesn't have an agency in her own body to say yes regardless of who it is because she birthed Jesus. So is it that it's the pregnancy or the thing, or is it if the narrative fits, we're okay with it? And if we think about it in many places, if the narrative fits or works, we'll bend the rules a little bit over here. And even the Bible isn't consistent on these things. Adultery, not consistent. Who can, even the notion of sex in the Bible, who can have it? It's about power. It's literally a thing about power. If you go back and run all the stories, it's really about, it always is a person in power with a person who is not in power. It doesn't understand the dynamic of equals. That's why things like, let's say, homosexuality are an issue. It's not about it being male. It's about, well, if it's two males, who's in power? So we make it about these other things, but really biblically, and a lot of what was written is about control and power dynamics. And if we understood that, we would look at things a bit differently. hold on, someone on the on chat, Coach Cherie said, how do we get beyond looking good externally to being good internally? It's important to face ourselves internally and unlearn what no longer serves us to make space for healing and love. And yeah, I think that's what we're talking about a lot. We're all good about because we say it, right? I don't look like what I've been through. Sometimes you might need to look like what you've been through. Because how does anybody know? We don't look like what we've been through, and then we're mad when nobody knows we had been through something. We don't want to speak. We want people to know while we've had our facade and our armor on. I look great. God is good all the time. Meanwhile, we are like crumbling and then upset that nobody notices. But we've put on these masks and these armors, and God is good all the time, and everything, works together for the good. And we're out here looking like, but on the inside. And then we wonder why when we go, people don't believe us. We were having this conversation about tithing, right? Because we're like, I don't know if I was talking to Pastor, I was like, people don't believe that we don't have the money. They don't believe it, right? When we get up there and we're like, please give, or this is what's happened. One, because you come and it's like, oh my gosh, the place is beautiful. There's a hope center. There's a dream center. There's a this. There's a that. We look pretty. We keep doing things. Here's a food pantry. Here's a this. Here's a that. It looks like all is well. So then you're like, I don't need to support or give. They got it, and it's like, we don't. But we look pretty. And so when you show up that way, it doesn't matter how many times you're like, but it's not like what it seems. It's like when our external affect, right, doesn't match our inward disposition, people get confused by that. It's like when I said, when Pastor Mike preached from I preached and I had a conversation and I was like, bro, I'm drowning. And he was like, and I didn't believe you. And I was like, but I said, and he was like, but you drown so well. Like you could be drowning and they think it's like synchronized swimming. I'm like, I can't tread water. He's like, oh, look at that choreography. It's so nice. I'm like, well, going under, right? But again, what part do we play in dressing ourselves up so well that when we say we're struggling, we're not believed? And we should be believed when we say it, but it's just hard sometimes for people to make those connections. Yes. So, yeah, but I don't know now what the question is in relationship to. Was it bad if we learn on the journey and grow? Is it bad? The girls are such a blessing. I personally think many of us were raised in religion but not connected to spirit in relationship with God. I mean, folks can call it whatever they want, good, bad, all those things. They're here. I'm happy. I just think too, right? Everybody doesn't have ill intent. Some people do, but I think some people really, when you're churched a particular way, like you're gonna go down hard for how you were churched, right? Like you're not, and it's so important, and it ties into this this quote in the book because it's Maya's grandmother who says to her, where was it? She said that I must always be intolerant of ignorance, but understanding of illiteracy. I must always be intolerant of ignorance, but understanding of illiteracy. There's a difference between being illiterate and being ignorant. If you're illiterate and you just can't read or you don't have access to education, there's a lot of our grandparents who didn't go to college, but they had wisdom, they were smart, they had other stuff, and you learn things from them. Like being illiterate is not necessarily your fault. Sometimes that's your socioeconomic standards. It doesn't mean that you don't have. And if they had access to certain things, they probably wouldn't have been illiterate, but they didn't have access to those things. That is different than what I see parading around a lot now, and that is ignorance. Ignorance is a choice. That's a choice. Like sometimes I'm like, you're just gonna really, you're just really going to post that? Like, you could fact check that. Even now, if a pastor says something, you don't have to just take what we say. You could let me see if Psalms really, well, my daughter calls it. My daughters we were walking home, and, to hear them talk about Bible or church is hilarious. Like, the stuff there, and I'm like, so, when my daughters is like, because it is a sin to be a glutton. You cannot be a glutton. And so I'm always like, well, what does it mean? Because you can't use a word if you can't define it. Like, that's not how we roll in my house. If you don't know what it means, don't say it, or go, you got the tablet, go look it up and write it down. Like, we still roll that way. So she was able to describe what a glutton was. And I was like, well, where is that at? She said, palms. She meant song. It's not in Palms, but she was so like, and I was like, you could go look that up. And even now I have to teach my kids that, because if they see something, let's say on YouTube or something, they tout it like it is fact because it was in a video. And I'm consistently having to say, just because it's on a video or just because you see it, doesn't mean that it's true. And I've had to teach them how to let's actually go look and see how we can find out if this is real or not. That is not what is happening with a lot of adults today. We see something on social media and we run with it. I remember when it was last year, whatever year Color Purple was coming out. And, Taraji P. Henson is in The Color Purple. At the same time, this AI poster of another movie with Taraji was on it that was coming out at the same time. First of all, they're not going to do that for marketing purposes. But there were smart people, I knew that had masters and PhDs who were sharing this poster of this fake movie. And I was like, now you could go. How we have so much access and I feel like we're more dumb. It's because of the access. So we don't choose to read, right? We don't read often past. If you sometimes read a headline and all you read is the headline and you don't go and read the story, you're like, oh, y'all were doing this for clickbait. That's a thing. I'm trying to get you to so I'm going to put this salacious headline that really isn't the truth. We got a president that just be saying stuff. All the time, I just be like, this is the best. I'm like, and people are just like, and it's like, this isn't real. This is not true. And it is not the 1940s. It is not your grandmother's world where they did not have access to that, where things were passed through orally. There were things not written down. People were illiterate. It is not that time, but they were smarter than us. You couldn't just say whatever you wanted. But now, even us, check us. I remember we were cracking up, and it wasn't, and again, I told you guys I was a nerd. I read a lot, and somebody was here preaching, and it was a great sermon. But they were talking about, Sojourner Truth. So we sitting here, and because we be the talking role, because we love preaching and stuff, right? So when people are preaching, we're like this, but we're like, sometimes you see me on my phone, I'm looking up stuff, we will be having full-on conversations about the sermons. And I know people have group chats around sermons and things too while the sermons are actively happening. So the person was saying, when Sojourner Truth said, ain't I a woman, da-da-da. And I was like, and I think Reverend Leisha was next to me, and I was like, she didn't even say that. And she was like, what? I was like, Sojourner Truth didn't say that. She was like, what do you mean? And so I showed her where it was actually a redaction, Sojourner Truth never, please don't go around just public announcement, everybody. Please don't go around saying Sojourner Truth said, ain't I a woman, even though it's attributed to her. It wasn't. It was redacted into her speech later by a white abolitionist. She never actually said that. Now, that's not a fact that someone would know, so I'm not knocking you if you didn't know that. My point was, it was easy for me to just be like, Google, and let me show you where this is. And that's what we should be doing with one another, right? Oh, no, that's not That's not accurate. Like, here's the info. We should be passing on the right information instead of spreading the wrong information, right? And again, sometimes we just don't know things, and there's nothing wrong. And again, I would believe that if you asked most, if it was a family food trivia or something, or it was like, Jeopardy, and it was like, and who said, it would, ain't I a woman? People gonna be like, and who is Sojourner Truth? Like, that was just a thing, right? It's just gonna be, it's Jeopardy, right? It's not Wheel of Fortune, it's not Family Feud, it's Jeopardy. But the point is, we have access to things. So even biblically, you have access to checking if something, it says study to show thyself approved. Not just listen to your pastor and believe what they say. Us included. You don't have to take everything we say like at face value. How do you grow that way? Like, what services if you just sit and take something from somebody and you're not doing your due diligence to be like, let me. Like, even when Pastor Lakeisha was like, I hope you go back and read the rest of this text. You should. Because, you try to do things responsibly. You do. But there are some churches where they do not try to do things. And they will say, whatever, whoever, this isn't about, it's like that's not even there. That didn't even happen that way. That's not the case. And so if you just take it, you will build your whole life on theology that might be, undergirded by lies. And so it's important that we do that work for ourselves as well. If sometimes people are like, so I got a question about this. How do you feel? You should be in discussion about the things. And that's why I love opportunities like TNT, because most Bible studies aren't set up that way, where you can be like, so I read this and what's up? What is this? What does this mean? I don't understand this. I'm not quite gelling with that. And us being able to be like, okay, this is what it is. Or simply when you don't know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to get back to you. Like, we think that takes away something when we don't know. No, because we don't know everything. And so I might be like, I'm not sure, but I'll find out, or let's look together. But there's a power in just saying you don't know something. But sometimes we don't want to look stupid, right? Just in general, we don't want to look a certain way. We don't want to feel this way. And so we feel like we have to manufacture an answer so that we can feel like we're the subject matter expert, when it's okay to not be the smartest person in the room. That's how you learn, and that's how you grow sometime. So yes, Serchina said, verify the info. Verify it. Look it up. Because, if you go to Palms, it's not going to be there. It's not going to be there. Yeah, but, and so, what time is it? Okay. So as we kind of move through the story, she goes back and forth with, her mother and her grandmother. And at some point, she ends up back with her mother in California. And then her father invites her to kind of be around. And the father has a girlfriend. And the girlfriend is very jealous of Maya. So at some point, Maya and I can't think of the girlfriend's name right now. Basically, they get into it, and her father's girlfriend stabs Maya. Right? So then Maya runs away, and she goes to live in a junkyard. It was interesting because she's living in this junkyard, right? But that was the place where she felt the safest. So I'm trying, again, I have all these quotes, but essentially, it's this idea that church wasn't safe for her. Oh, she said, the fact that the people in the junkyard accepted me without question was a revelation. It was a fact that she didn't feel accepted in her family. She didn't feel accepted in her church. It was strangers who had nothing and asked for nothing where she felt the safest. And that speaks something, because sometimes we are in church and we don't feel safe. We are in our families and we don't feel safe. And because we don't set up these places to be safe havens, right? People feel like they have to go elsewhere. Like you should never have to, church should not be the place that damages you. Church should never be the place where you feel like God is like you have a barrier to God. Like how dare we erect barriers to God? Who created you? Like where do we get the right and the power as the church and as people to be a barrier, to say who God can and cannot love, who God can accept, how you can show up? Like, but we do this all the time where folks literally leave churches and are like, I'm never going again. I'm done with church. A lot of folks who end up at FCBC are folks who maybe came from other churches. They had a lot of church hurt or damage. And not for nothing, we've caused damage to people too. People have been hurt because church is just made up of people, right? And we're not our best selves a lot of the time, right? But what does that mean when the church can't be a safe haven? Like where you come here and you get more condemned? Like, I know we've been in those churches where you get up there and all it is talking about is the sin, the thing, the that, the this, the don't do that. And it's condemnation, condemnation, condemnation all of the time. But it's funny because sometimes people have also critiqued us, right? Because they feel like we don't talk about sin and these things enough. So that church is just loosey-goosey. Like they just let people do everything. And it is an interesting kind of tension that we are, especially as people of color, where we say we want to be free, but we look for chains everywhere that we can. Right? We say we want freedom, but when we can find something to bind us, we go right back into what is like ancestral for us, like what's visceral for like what our ancestors had to experience. So our ancestors literally jumped off boats into water for freedom. We would be trying to jump into the boat for safety. It's like literally there's this thing, well, it's not, right? Because it is and it isn't, right? Because who we are when we came over were people who jumped off boats. But who we became through here are also people who, yes, we are used to being chained. We're used to being told what to do. It's the idea of, it's not Pavlov's dogs. There's a theory where essentially there was like a chain or a fence, right? And the dogs would go to, every time they would go, it would shock them. It would shock them. So the dogs learned to not go to the fence. Then when they removed the fence, the dogs still wouldn't go. Even though they were free, they still would not. It was a study. They still would not run away even though the fence was no longer, because they had conditioned themselves. And even when you're not conditioned, we condition each other. So even if I'm the person who wants to run toward, don't go towards that fence, you'll get shocked. Stay bound over here with me. Don't do this, don't do that, show up this way, do this, do that. So this idea that even in church, we try to find these ways in which we can still be bound. Just tell me the right way to do it so I can get to heaven. So can I do this or can I not? Give me the checklist so that I can show up in this, in my box. And I know because I was the box. Before I got to FC, I was I was the box, read my scripture, did this, don't do that, don't drink, be abstinent, don't curse, don't listen to secular music. Like every box was perfectly checked. Don't wear this, don't do that. Don't wear a lipstick, don't wear a pants. It was oh, go ahead. Say it again. Yeah, we do still do it. You're right. You're like, to some sense, you do still do it. We can't, to some degree, it's like we can help it, but that takes work. It takes more work to be free than it takes to be bound. That's active work that you have to consistently do over and over again. And it's also brave. And I'm not knocking anyone who doesn't do it, but it is a brave thing to make the choice to say, I am going to show up in a space or do this, and I'm going to take whatever that means for people. And people don't always want you to show up in that way, right? So, we have people who come in and they might be like, oh, I'm dressed this way, I apologize. I'd be like, I do not care. Like what you wore, like you got here, right? Like you got here to find God. Like when they were naked in the garden, Jesus was like, who told you were naked? So if you could be naked in front of God, like what am I going to say about what you're wearing in church? I literally don't care. And even when we throw, the sheets on people at the wailing steps, that's not because we care about people. Sometimes I like to also explain why we do some of the things we do here, because you may not know. And I call them the wailing steps because, people like the altar. I'm like, these are steps that people wail at. They are the wailing steps. But we do that so people feel covered. They feel comfortable, right? Like if I come up and I don't want to be like fidgeting with whatever. I want to feel like I have it's about covering, but it's about it represents spiritual covering versus literal covering because we're concerned about what you are wearing. Right, because sometimes people will take that and be like, oh, well, you can't if they weren't wearing. We do it on everybody, male, female, identified, children, however you identify. When you come to the wailing steps, you gonna get a sheet, and probably the cotton ones, the silky ones kind of slide off your back. So we put those ones at the bottom. If it gets too full, we're gonna give you the silky one. Or, you just sit there kind of holding it. But that's about you knowing that you are covered and you are safe. That's what it represents. Yes. Someone said, I joined a church, and during the application process, like college? I was asked if I had children, then was I married? And the woman asking me the question said, see that you sinned and still, like application. But there are also some seminaries, like seminary, if you don't know, is where you go like to get your theological degree. Like we have masters in divinity and there are some schools where you have to sign a contract, like of what you will and will not do. Like I will not engage in premarital sex. I will not drink. I will not do this or that in order for them to accept you into the school. Like like you have to sign a binding. And if they catch you, they're going to keep your money and kick you out. It's like application. Where is the application? Where did Jesus give anyone an application to the kingdom of God? Like where? So again, how do we get to be the barrier? Like it's like Jesus didn't even do that. He was like, all who want to come. He didn't probably talk like that, but that's my Jesus voice. That's my Jesus voice. So yes, like we all these ways, and I like church hurt is real. Also, sometimes we just get mad about a whole bunch of things and we don't offer enough grace. But always striving to make sure that the church is a safe place for people is important, and that begins with each one of us, right? So we can ask ourselves, do I make this a safe space for someone? Because it don't even have to be in what you say, it can be in how you act. When you look at someone, you like look at her just rolling down the aisle, doing backflips. Like let them roll, because you don't know what it took. Keep on rolling, and then just go back to your seat when you're finished. You know what I mean? But we have to be okay that all sorts of folks are gonna, like if you look at Jesus's disciples, it was like a smorgasbord of all types of people. Jesus was rolling with all different types of people. So the fact that you would check somebody's like skirt length before they come in, is and those are why some of the things why we got rid of membership, and we go back. You see us ebb and flow. It's like we didn't have membership, but then we do this. Or now we're trying to do this, but then we have a GFAM. We're always trying to evolve and find what is going to kind of work or be helpful, because we want people to feel like church is accessible, right? So, yes. And, again, we talked a little bit about Maya and her looks and stuff, but really the idea of like belonging. We talked about this. There was this New York Times article, as I told you, like that come out, and it was talking about how a few years ago there were some Pew studies, Pew studies that came out that said that people were leaving church in like droves, and so they were calling it the rise of the religious nuns, not like N-U-N, but N-O-N-E-S, like religious nuns being people who identified as they were like, when people are like, I'm spiritual but I'm not religious. Right? So they were like, they weren't going to church anymore, but they were finding their own ways to like create community. So they're like, we're going to do yoga together, or we're going to go to a Beyonce mass, or we're going to do these things. But they were no longer coming to church, but they were finding these other ways to try to make community. And now it's actually turning where the studies are showing that people are coming back to church. And part of that is because of this notion of belonging, because deep down, it kind of talks about these three things that people want. But one of the things that people at their core just want to do is to belong. Is it just hot to me? It's hot, right? Like, I'm like, the air don't feel like it's airing, huh? Yeah, I'm like, ooh, we gonna have to get out of here. But yes, it is hot. That's because you got your shoulders out, so that's why you're not hot. But the idea of belonging. And so Maya talks about how, she goes to these schools, and then she's not feeling like she fits in with the girls, right? And so because she doesn't feel like she fits, she starts thinking that she's a lesbian, right? So even though she wasn't, but she was like, well, I don't fit, so maybe it's I don't fit because of this. So then to counter that, she goes and she has sex with the boy, which she's like 15 or 16, and then she has sex with him that one time and she gets pregnant. And she did this, right, because she didn't feel like she belonged. And so when we think about the things that we try to do, when we feel like we don't fit, and all we want to do is fit, right? And we think that, if everything is blue, I too have to be blue. We don't appreciate like, no, well, I'm yellow, or I'm pink, or I'm green, or I show up this way. We just want to be, I want to be blue like everybody else. When really God didn't actually create, we're all individual. If we were all supposed to be the same, couldn't we have just been created that way? Right? But we weren't. But this idea that when you want to belong, you want to fit, you fit into construct and rules. And when you can't, you will do all of these other things in order to kind of find those spaces and places of like belonging. And we still do that, right? And you do it all across wherever you are. We want to belong, so we get into the relationship, but we also don't leave the relationship. We go to this school and we do this, or we go to this church, or we follow this pattern. My family did this, so I don't want to be the black sheep in my family. So all my family was engineers. I want to be an artist, but I'm just going to be an engineer because my family, because I don't want to be. We do all these things so that we don't have to deal with the idea of being ostracized. Deshaun, you want to say something? Oh, but get the mic though.
Okay. No, I was just I was thinking about the point that you were just making, and it took me back to kind of high school, but also kind of now as I look at the kids that are growing up and the world that we're in, that there is this kind of negative connotation that comes with being unique or being weird, right? And it's odd because I was actually talking to one of my youth, and they have now taken the word as their own pronoun. Like, being weird is a great thing. But I remember growing up, as you were saying, like, going against the norm would be things that would get you reprimanded. That would be the thing that would get you frowned on, or, I know for me growing up, you go to a school, the school will set you up. You have to have uniform and you have to look this certain way. And so they condition you to try to look a certain way, to sound a certain way, to act a certain way. But then when you get to that graduate level, they're like, now it's time for you to compete. Now it's time for you to stand out and show how separate you are. But you just put me through 6 years of trying to be identical to somebody else, right? And when you go, whether it's in a personal sense,
is Emmy, like the award, because she might get one, but not for nothing. She got the nickname that they actually gave me as a child, even though I was like, I'm not dramatic. My uncles used to call me Emmy, but the idea that sometimes, like even you have to change your language, because I've heard sometimes you'll be like, you're doing too much. Like, you know what I mean? Like you say these things, right? Because you're like, this is a lot. It's overwhelming for me. But when you think about like what might it feel like as a child to be told, like if there's, now we know sometimes kids are just like, now you know you did not need to do all of that. But that's a difference between like someone's personality and some people, because a lot of us, there's even adults where we're like, I can't even be around her because she does too much. He does. You ever said that about? I know I have. Like, they're a lot. Can't do it. But how that makes people feel too, when that is also who they are. They are a big personality. That is like how they show up in the world. And we literally want to squelch that because it's too much or we can't handle it or whatever the reason. So I even find sometimes it's hard to like adjust your language because you want people to feel like they can be their selves. So I've even had to have conversation with people where it's like, or mediate things where it's like, oh, they're not too much. No, they're not too much. They've always been this way. You just changed, right? You evolved. Right? And so this person, who they are, it's not that they're too much. You just don't have the capacity for their personality style right now or who they are. That's not a them thing, right? So there's a way you can say there's nothing wrong with you and who you are, just who I am in this season of my life. I don't have enough space to welcome all of you. And I want to welcome all of you, but I don't have enough space. But you get what I'm saying? There's a difference between saying, oh, it's not something that's wrong with who you are. It's just that I can't do it. And that's two different things, right? Like you gotta let people just be who they are. And if you can't take it, there's a way to gracefully not take it. Like you don't have to make people feel bad and you don't have to damage them in the process. Because what does it feel like when you're all consistently told you do too much? Where do you go, right? You need some people who do. You need to do too much people, especially if you're a do too little person. That's the part you want to do too much person in your group because that person is getting you the A. You know you would have got that D with your do too little self if you did not have the do too much person. right? Like, and you just got to know, like, who, like, and you have to be able to accept, like, who people are and be like, oh, okay, like, we need all of the, one body, many parts. Like, all right, you the mouth, I'm going to go be the pinky toe, okay? Like, we're going to be, you're going to be there and I'm going to be, and that's okay. But there's nothing wrong with you. It just, you know, we have to be able to kind of do that. Someone said, thank you for this talk. This is healing my inner child. I cannot wait to build the courage to come to FCBC. I've been church hurt. And that's the thing that you all, you know, we don't always know that there are people who watch virtually, and I've had conversations with people who literally will have not come into they are scared to come into the building, even though they love FCBC because they have been hurt and damaged. So I can take FCBC at my home, right? Because I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to worry about if anyone's gonna be mean to me. I'm too, because you know when you're raw and something is in, it don't take very much. When you're already damaged, someone can blow too hard and you're like, they blow real hard at that church. I'm not going anymore. Like, it doesn't, and you don't want someone to disrupt what you're trying to build with God. So you're like, I'll take God, but I don't want the people. Right? But I want to belong. And that's a hard space to be. You want God and you want the people, but the people cause you damage. So you're like, if I got to choose one, I'll choose God, but not the people, but I'm lonely. And that's hard. And sometimes I tell people, they're like, you know, I'm gonna come back, and I'm like, you don't have to, right? Like you literally don't, like, don't feel, sometimes I see people in the store like, I ain't been at FCBC, and so it's like they're like trying to confess, I ain't been at FCBC 3 years. I'm like, okay, I was just saying good to see you. Like, it was just, literally, it was just good to see you right now. It is fine if you don't come, because God is not just in this place. But I also tell people, well, then don't come to church. There are come to a TNT maybe, and sit in the back where there's not a full, because some of it's a lot of stimulation. And if you're used to like a small church, I remember when I first came to FCBC, I was like, oh, I'm not staying here. This church is real big. Like, it was way bigger than the church I was used to. I wasn't not used to not knowing people. I used to live with my pastors in California. Like, I had a room in their house. I literally lived with them. Like, even now to this day, I could know the code to their house. So I was not used to like having a big old church where you didn't know everybody. I had helped build that church. I knew everybody. So the idea of a church where I was like, I don't know most of these people, what is happening, that's really intimidating. And if you don't know anybody, you're likely to be like, I'm not coming back, and it won't matter because no one's gonna notice if I'm here or not. And so when you feel like you can walk in and out of a space and not be noticed, and so, you know, but we have to also find the small ways if it's something, right? I brought it, I think it was last week on prayer. There's prayer daily at 7:15 a.m. if you don't know, and each of us pastors or deacons get on. And I was talking about this quote from someone I like, Lovey, that basically says her prayer is like, let me, what is it? I basically something to like let my village find me, and let me be able to receive their help when they arrive. So it's this idea that, right, sometimes we just want God to do all the work, right? It's this like sometimes, like the same way Maya, she went to the junkyard and that became her family. We have to sometimes be willing to create the spaces and the places and the things that we want to see in the world. Okay, so, and like you said, sometimes I want to go to culinary school, right? And I want my family to accept that. So we might dismiss the person over here who is supporting us because we want it from here. Like, I want it from Deshawn. So it doesn't matter that Faye's giving it to me because I don't want it from Faye. That is me shutting out village and support. We don't always get it from the places and spaces that we want. And so we have to be willing to be like, how village shows up, who God allows to be in my life, I have to be open. And it may not be the people I want. But let them find me, and then let me receive it. Because sometimes it could come, and then it's like, hey, do you need help? And remember, we're drowning. No, I'm good. You're like, would you like a floaty? No, I'm just gonna learn how to, do this, so we have to be willing to do some of the work. So it might be like, okay, I'm not going to come to, here. Or sometimes people are like, I want to come to church, and I'm like, all right, well, if you want to come, let me know the Sunday that you're coming. Let me know when you're, and if I can go and like get you, you have to, or when I first came to FCBC, I had one friend. Because I used to come at 8 o'clock, because at 11 o'clock, I was like, too loud, too many people. Absolutely not. I'm not even staying at this church. I was like, I'm not staying at this church. Here I am. Look at me now, right? But if I wasn't willing to take the baby steps, which was I had the one friend, and I had the one girl, her name was Vanessa, and we sat next to each other every Sunday, because y'all know y'all have y'all spots. Y'all be ready to fight on Sunday if someone's in your spot. So I would only talk to Vanessa. Hey girl. And we would just, one person. And then after service, we would go like into Central Park or somewhere, and we would like just talk about, she was in school, I was in school. Like this is back in 2009 or 10. She was the first person, she was like, you should tell Pastor Mike, you're in seminary. I was like, for what? I don't want to work in a church. Like, and that was the one person I talked to. And then I was like, I'm still leaving this church, and I felt like I was supposed to stay, so I was like, okay, well, then I guess I need to maybe try to join a ministry, because ministry is a way that the church could feel a little bit smaller. So then I joined a young adult ministry. I'm saying this to say that sometimes you have to be willing to be like, I'm going to try so maybe I'm not going to come to church on Sunday, but I'll go to TNT. Or maybe there's a small groups thing, and I'll try that. Even when I did Unchurched, I did it at the Dream Center because I didn't want church to be a barrier to Unchurched. And there are some people who said if I had held it at church, they wouldn't have come, because they're that traumatized by, it's not necessarily FCBC, but it's church. All the churches become the same. It all gets locked in. Your trauma gets locked in. It's just church, period. And so it's okay, Vanessa, if you don't come, or you come to a TNT and you sit in the back, or you try whatever is, to get your sea legs, or you don't, and you just decide you watch virtually. But there are other people who are watching virtually. There's a way to begin to kind of connect, so we just have to, sometimes we have to be willing to say, it's like the person was like, ooh, I want a man. And it's like, but baby, you don't go outside. Like, unless it's the Amazon delivery person, like, you're like, hey, unless it's the person delivering sometimes you have to be like, I have to go where people are. And it's trying to find friends as an adult it is real ghetto. But the reality is the Surgeon General said that, and we're going to finish up in the next couple of minutes, that the loneliness is an epidemic. It's literally like, like people are feeling lonely like I just read an article about a man who like proposed to his AI girlfriend, like the ChatGPT girlfriend. Like people are having whole relationships with ChatGPT, honestly. And doing therapy. They are doing therapy on it, which is, it's biased. You can't do that. I mean, you can, but it's not going to help you heal. Right? But the idea is that but when you're intimidated by connecting with people, and so literally through the Uptown Collective, which is like the artistic collective, we last year started curating adult field trips, because people were like, it's really hard to make friends, and like if you make friends usually at your job or but if you don't make them in those spaces where it's like, I met my friends in college or I met my friends here, you're just out here like, so how do you make a friend when you're like 45? Especially if you're like an introvert, like what do you do? So we started being like, oh, we're all gonna go like to Bryant Park. We send out the mass email, whoever wants to come, we'll be there. And there were like some of us who were there to curate, like gather everybody so that you could just meet like, oh, it's a smaller setting of people. So sometimes you have to, or sometimes you just may need to be where the people who do that. Like if you don't do that, like there are people who like collect people. Right there, that's just like what they're like. Really, I'm not a good people collector. Like, don't ask me, because I'm probably most times gonna be in the house. But There are people, they're very extroverted. They're very seem like they have friends. They collect people. Maybe I just need to be in proximity. But you have to be brave enough to kind of do those things so that you can find your village and community. But I do think they exist. I do think sometimes you have to be able to build it. And that also means sometimes you have to let some things go too. Some relationships, some people, some things that you're like, this isn't suiting me anymore, but I'm holding on to this. And so I'm holding on to this so I'm not open to wherever else or whatever else I can find community or people or groups. And it's real awkward, but it's just awkward. I don't know. It's just awkward, but those are just some of the things that we can do. And so at the end of the story, she has the baby, but through that, she does start speaking again. She does find her voice, and she does begin to write and do all these things. So it ends up, working out for Maya that she finds belonging and kind of having the child and getting this freedom in a different way. And again, this, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing is one of 7 autobiographies, so you have to read the other 6 to kind of see where she lands. But I hope this conversation was fruitful for you, that you got something out of it, whether you were joining online or in the building. If you have additional, Akira, can you drop my email in the chat? If you have any questions that you didn't get to ask here, Akira will drop my email in the chat. You can email me whatever your question may be. And this is the last TNT. We're going on break for summer. Yeah, so this is the last TNT, and we will resume again in September, in the building, both in the building and virtually. So, so thank you for joining, and we will announce what the next band book will be. We'll probably read something again in September, but I hope you got something out of this. I hope you read something over summer. I can't buy any more books, so now I just go to the library and get them there, because I was like, you're not allowed to buy any more books. So if there are no other questions, okay, then we'll pray. God, we thank you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for FCBC, even in its imperfection. God, we thank you that it is a place of belonging, a place where we can gather, a place where we can learn, where we can grow. God, we are grateful. We are grateful for the ability to have conversations that are nuanced and complex, God, where we can question, where we can learn about you, where we can learn about ourselves, God. And right now, I want to pray a special prayer for those who feel like they don't have a safe space to be. Whether that is their home, whether that is the church, wherever that may be, God, we're praying for those people who are seeking out friends or seeking out community and seeking out belonging, and they feel like it is eluding them, God. We pray, one, that they are able to see the places and spaces that you are bringing before them that allow for that, God. But we also pray that their hearts are open, that they can begin to heal, that they can begin to open up themselves again, because we are all worthy and deserving of love. We are all worthy and deserving of people in our lives who choose us, who can see the best of us. We are all worthy of people that we can be our whole and authentic self with, God. So we thank you for the new villages and communities that are being built, God. We thank you for the way in which in this moment friendships are being forged and relationships are being forged, God. We thank you for the fact that you will be in the midst of those things. Yesterday is not today, God. And so some of us are holding on to the narratives and the experiences of yesterday, and they are clouding our ability to be in the moment. God, help us to heal in whatever ways that looks like, God, so that we can move forward. Help us to be ever evolving, so that we can truly live the lives that we are created to live. We love you, God. We are grateful, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. 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 I hope y'all voted if you didn't, because the polls are closing. 5 minutes. So I hope you got to vote. And we will see you in September. God bless. Have a great evening.